Hello. Yeah. So should we wait or should we start? Should we wait for some people? Yeah. Should we wait for some people? Cool. I'll start it right now. So hi guys. We'll be learning today API integration, and we'll also be learning the qubit slash block architecture for Flutter. So earlier in the Flutter festival, we have already had the basics of Flutter done and the basic of UI in the Dart language. So I thought we should really step ahead with the API integration. That is like one of the most important thing while developing an app. Another thing that I really wanted to do with is block and qubit architecture. This is the reason is because this architecture is the most in demand as I have seen. There are many other architectures that you can use, and there is a lot of debate which is the best one. But I have personally used this one, and so we'll be learning that. So first, for making requests, we have like a lot of packages. So here are the three most famous packages that you'll see around the internet on people using it: HTTP, DIO, and Chopper. So I've seen a lot of people use DIO, and I've not really seen so many people use Chopper, and HTTP is like moderately used. So in this session, we'll be using HTTP, and we you can use any, like it's upon you. So we'll be using HTTP for this one. To install it, you can just go to the Flutter pub website and just get the package name and Flutter pub install. Then about qubit. So we have qubit is like a derivative of a block architecture. So what the block architecture is that it is made of three components. One is event, one is state, and one is the block. But in qubit architecture, what happens is uh, in we don't have events in this, so we only have the qubit and the states. So qubit is like, you can say it is a derivative. It is a part of the block package itself. So like there's there you can, if you install the block package, qubit automatically gets installed with it. Qubit is a lightweight state management solution. This architecture, block stack qubit, is a state management solution architecture. So it is a subset of block package. As I said, it is a derivative of the block package. And I personally prefer qubits instead of blocks because it has better syntax, and I think there is less boilerplate code for this. So, and many people do believe that qubit has better syntax for this. So what qubit basically does is it emits the state. Suppose you add a new user into your backend through the app. So what qubit will do is that it will initiate that method and then emit a loading state, suppose, and then accordingly all the listeners in the app will know that the app's current state is loading. So it will show you that screen at that point according to whatever state the app is. So this is really cool. Later we'll be coding the whole architecture and we'll be integrating API today itself. So installation of block is, you can just go to the website of the Flutter packages and install it, the Flutter underscore block package. And you don't need to do anything else for Qubit because it is, as earlier stated, it is a part of block package. Okay, so in qubit we have, as I said earlier, in block we have three things, three components: the block, the events, and the states. But in qubit we only have two: the qubit class and the state class. So the qubit class, it basically mentions all the methods that you will be writing for the specific business logic. For example, if you're adding an employee that we'll be making today, we'll be adding employees and deleting employees, all the CUD operations with it. So if you're adding any employee, you are accessing a method for that. So, sorry, my attendance. Yeah. So we'll be going through. Yeah. So in qubit class, you have always the methods, all the methods that you'll be having. So suppose you're adding a new employee to your database. So all the method that will initiate the request will be mentioned in the qubit class. On the other hand, the state class define all the states that the app will be at some point, and then qubit will emit that state. So for example, if you're loading all the employees, so before we have got all the list, we need to show something to the user so that they know that the app is working to get the data. So when the most common example is like the loading state. So what qubit does is as soon as we call the get request, so the qubit class will do is it will emit the loading state, and the loading state is defined in the state class. So all the listeners, as soon as it is emitted, all the listeners inside the UI will know that it is in the loading state and will update themselves accordingly. So yeah, as I said, it is the qubit class emits a new state which can be received by widgets and be updated accordingly. The classes contains all the methods to update the state of the application. And the state class describes all the instances of the states that the app will be using, and the UI widgets will be updated according to the states that the app is in. So, how to inject a qubit in a widget tree? So, Flutter uses widget tree as you know if you have seen the earlier Flutter Festival videos. So, but how does the widget tree know which qubit that is a part of? For example, an app can have many qubits. For example, if we are having a list of employees, we can have a list of teachers, we can have a list of students. So these things will have different qubits. So what we can do is like for the students page, we can provide the students qubit in that page itself, and in the teachers page, we can provide the teachers qubit in that page itself. But there are some qubits that need attention in the entire app. So suppose navigation and theme. So if suppose you're changing dark theme to light theme, that should be accessible to the every single UI in the app, right? So that is like kind of a global qubit that that you can inject in the widget tree. So the using block providers, we can inject the qubits in the widget tree so that they know which state they are in and which what they should do according to the state. Now, again, how would the UI know which state it is in, and how would the UI build itself? So there are a few classes that help us with it. How to connect qubit to UI. So there are a few classes that help us with it. The first one, not the first one, but like the most common one is block builder. So what block builder does is suppose the app is in the loading state. So it will show you a circular progress indicator if you have defined it that way. And what block listener does is it doesn't build any UI widget. Block listeners perform the functions that you want the app state to have it. For example, as soon as we add add an employee, as soon as the employee is added, we want to shift to the list of employees from the screen we are adding employees for. So for that, we might use block listener. But suppose if you want to show the button as green as soon as the employee is added, so that for that you can use block builder. Again, the syntax for this is block builder, as you can see here on the left side. The builder state contains all the widget tree, and in the listener we have a child that will contain the UI, but the listener will do the function basis on that. Now, suppose you want to do both of it. Suppose you have a page that you want to show a change in UI according to some states, but as soon as some other state comes, you want to perform a function. So for that, we can use block consumer. So block consumer can be considered as a a mixture of both of builder and listener. So it has both the parameters, block listener and block builder, and it reduces the amount of boilerplate needed. So you don't need to define block builder and block listener separately. You can just define block consumer once, and then you can use it whenever you want. The syntax for this you can see is we also have a listener and we also have a builder. And in this you can uh, so suppose for example you're adding a user. So as soon as you add a user, while the user is being added, the app is in the loading state. So the builder will tell the app remove all the widgets and make it in the blue loading state. But suppose as soon as the user is added and you want to shift to the next screen, so the listener will know, okay, the success state is initialized, it is emitted by the qubit, and the listener will shift your screen to the another screen as if you have defined it that way. So now we'll be coding an app that has that you can add an employee for and update it, delete it, all the CRUD functions we have. Let me just share my screen. Yeah. So now we'll be coding. So I have a basic project ready since I we have limited time. So I'll just run it and show you. So we only have this screen ready for now and another screen that will show you the profile of the employee. So this has your name, age, phone number, and department. And once you click on add employee, it will be added, and accordingly, you'll be shifted to this page. So let's start. Um, I've made two qubits. As I said, qubits only have two components. So the qubit state and qubit, the employee qubit. So we'll be writing from the scratch the qubits. So first, let us define the qubit states. Okay, so the qubit states are like abstract classes. We need to define the state for one qubit because it is a one business logic. So it will be an abstract class because we don't need that specific class itself, and we'll be implementing extending through all other states through this main class. Now we'll be mentioning all the other states. So suppose let us decide the states that our app that we want our app to be in. So first one is the init state. Suppose uh, the user has just opened the app. So first we have the init state, and we definitely need a loading state as well and a success state. So as soon as the we have fetched the list, we'll show the user the success list, and if the user has just opened the app, we'll show the init state, and then if the user is shifting from the init state to success state, we'll be showing the loading state. And another one last state that we can add is the error state. So suppose some of the error might happen while fetching, so we'll just show them that state instead. So we'll be having four states in this app. So class was init state employee. This will be extending employee state. Yeah. Again, class loading state employees. suppose we need to name it success state employee, and the last one is error. So I've already defined a model for this, as you can see. So we'll be having five parameters: the ID, the name, age, phone number, and department. But in the UI, we will only be having four because the ID will be generated by the backend. Or we can also, in this app, what we are doing is we are using the UUID package for making the IDs. This is the function for converting it from map to the uh, this. These are the two functions that the models have. So from map to from JSON to normal model that we have will be using in our app, and the other function is from the our model to the JSON. So we'll just import it. Cool. Now we'll be defining the qubit. We'll be defining all the methods we'll be using in the app. So this is the main file that the UI will be interacting with. So as you can see in this thing, what is happening is we are using the employee states that we have already defined here. So initially we'll be when the user opens the app, we want the user to be in this state, in the init state employee, and in the UI will mention what is to be shown when the state is in init state again, and accordingly we'll mention what to be shown in the loading state. And in the success state, as you can see, we have a parameter called employees. So what when we will emit the employee state, we also need to pass a parameter called employees. That is the list of employees that will be having all the employees that we have got. So we can just rename it as all employees. Yeah. And if we are emitting the error state, we also need to pass a parameter that will be the error message that will be shown to the user so that they know the error, what the error is. And the first function that we'll be using is the get. So this function will be fetching your uh, all the list of users. So again, here we need a repository for this. So we'll be creating a repository. Is my screen visible? Yeah. So as you can see in here, first we have like use the constructor to initialize the initial state. Ignore the error messages now. We'll just import it later. But first, what we have done is we'll be importing the initial employee state for the qubits, and in the UI we'll define what the initial state UI will be. Again, see, as soon as we call this method get employee list, you can see the qubit is emitting the employee loading state that we have defined here. Loading state employee. We just rename it. Loading state employee. Yeah. So, so while the app is fetching the list, the state is this loading state. And as soon as we have got a response, we'll be showing the employee success state. So I'll just yeah. And we'll be passing the parameter called all employees, which will be a list of employees from the response that we have got. And then the employee error sheet, we need to mention the same name. We'll be passing the message So to make the API calls, we'll be using a repository, and in this repository, we'll be using the HTTP package that I mentioned before. So I think that we have missed one thing. We need to install the Flutter qubit package. I'll just install it. Yeah. So as I said earlier, we don't need any special package for qubit. We'll be adding the Flutter block package. Long package. Just a second. Yeah, the Flutter block package. So now the app will be working with the qubits. You can just initialize it. We'll be using this thing. The name should be same as I said earlier. Yeah, yeah. Most of the others are gone. Now we'll be defining the repository. So in the repository, we'll be mentioning all the calls, all the four CRUD functions that we'll be using. So we'll name it employee repository. As you can see, GitHub Copilot is suggesting us some stuff, but we'll be using uh, first we want a list of employees from the get method. So first we'll say that we need a list of all employees, and we initialize an empty list here. Just import the model. Then we need a base URL. So for this, we'll be using an API that I made earlier for a project. So for that, we'll be making a constant file. Yeah. So for this, we'll be using a base URL that is 1 second. I just need to check the base URL. Yeah. So this is a string. The base URL is this one. We got from a repo that I made earlier for a project. So it is hosted on Railway, and we'll be using this. So again, yeah, this is constant, so this should be constant. So this base URL will be calling here. So first we'll define the URL here. What actually we are doing is we are making the repository, and we'll be mentioning all the four CRUD functions in this repository. So the CRUD functions will be called by the qubits and then in the repository, and then the repository will give them the response that will go in the qubit and then in the state and then in the UI. So the base URL is URL is equal to, yeah. So the endpoint is that we'll be using is a list. This will get us all the list of all the employees that we need. So first we'll define the method. So we'll be using future because if you have attended earlier Flutter sessions, the future, we have not yet received it. So as soon as the await function give us the list of employees, it will be updated and we'll have a list of employees to it. So I'll just my work easier here. Yeah. Okay. No, this is a repository itself. So what we need to do is first we'll call it. So we'll make a try catch file first. And in this, if we have any error, we'll directly throw exception. And then here we'll be using the base URL. So first we need a response from that. Yeah, response. So we will be using the HTTP package right now here itself. So what we'll do is we'll use the get function from the HTTP package. As you can see here, the HTTP package is will be used here for the get function. I'll just put it enter. And the URL we have defined here will be used because the endpoint is /list and we have defined the base URL earlier itself. So again, yeah, I think we need to pass this as a URI. So we'll make it as URI here, or we can make it as here itself. I dot pass URL. So there's some error and we need to pass a parameter itself, as you can see. So the parameter will be headers, or headers will be the headers according to the backend that I remember was the content type. Yeah, this one. As soon as we get the response, what we'll do is we'll check the status code of the response. Yeah. So as soon as we get the response, we'll check the status code of the response. And if we get it, we'll decode the JSON from the we'll decode the response from JSON to the list of employees that we have defined here. So accordingly, we'll return that thing here. Um, uh, these are all the inbuilt functions that we'll use. And we also need to mention it as that we need it as list. So we'll cast it as list. We'll pass the response in this. Is the error? Yeah. Okay. No, we don't need this. So what is the, yeah, we need to pass the body of the response. Now we have the JSON that we got as response, and we need a list of all employees. So we'll be using the map function that we have defined in the model earlier. So this function, what it does is, it will change the JSON response to the list of employees that we have defined here. As soon as we get this, we'll be returning this. Yeah. Yes. So suppose if the status code is not 200, so what we'll do is throw some of the other exception. Here it is some error, or we like to fetch. Yeah. Let me just go through it. Cool. We'll see what errors we'll get. Okay. Also, we should define the add list itself. Otherwise, how are we testing it? So the add list won't be having any return type. As you can see here, we have a get list. So we need a list of employees, but the add list won't be having a return type like a parameter or a list or something. So we'll be using future void, and then we'll use add employee. This function will be connected to this screen right here. So as soon as we click on add employee here, it will call the qubit and the qubit will call the repository right here. So yeah, we'll pass an employee as you can see, and it will be an async function. Cool. So this way we can also define the other two CRUD functions. One will be update, each employee, and the other will be delete. We'll be passing the employee here. Yeah. All the functions that the repository should have been defined here. Now we'll go back to the qubit and we'll define all the functions in the qubit. So we need to add employee. Yeah, should make our session a little easier. Update and then delete. So in this, we won't be passing a string. We'll be passing an employee here. Yeah. So we have defined the qubits as well. As you can see, as soon as we have got a response from get employee list, we are emitting this thing, uh, emitting the success state. But here we'll be emitting the init state itself because we won't be showing it in that screen. So we'll be showing init employee again here itself also. What state you are emitting depends on your app, and you can define it this as well. I'll just I just want to show an example of what the init state will look like when you're adding and deleting or updating the qubit. So for now, I'll just go through again what we did. Just one error. So, yeah, what is the error? We have finished. Okay, this is an okay. We need to add cast here. Let me see once. All employees equal to reason. On our map. Yeah, this will be okay. Yeah, we haven't checked whether this thing will be okay. We need to add cast as an employee. Cool. Just a second. I'll go through it. Yeah, so what is happening here is we already have converted it to in the repository, we have already converted it to a list of employees. So here we don't need to have that. We can just name it as all employees. We are just passing this itself in the success state. So as you can see, the all employees is of list of employees that we have already converted it here. See, cool. So now we have, I'll just go through what we have done. We defined the qubit class. We defined the qubit state class. So the state class are all the states. The qubits have all the methods. These four methods: add, update, delete, and then the qubits are calling depending on the repository. So if you see the hierarchy, first there's the UI, then we have qubit, and then we have repository. So for the UI calls from the qubit, and qubit calls from the repository, and the repository using the base URL and the endpoints to get the data and do whatever with it. So now we'll be moving to the UI screens. So in this, we have three screens. So this screen that you are seeing is the employee screen. So as you can see, I have already written the basic UI for the employee. So what we'll define here is we need all of this as it is. We'll define the add employee function here. So what the add employee function should be having is it should call the add employee qubit, this this qubit, and it should also pass a parameter of the employee model type. Cool. Do we have any questions here? I'll just go through the comments. Cool. I'll be answering the questions in the end. I'll just uh, go through the app first. So we'll add the employees. As you can see, this is we won't be using this thing. So this employee we need to, as you can see, we have created an employee. This employee we need to pass it to the qubit that we have defined in the qubit file. Yeah. So how we'll just call the define the qubit here. It should be final, I think. Qubit context. Just import it, and from this qubit we'll call the function add employee, and we'll pass the employee parameter right here. We have an error. Okay. So cool. I just need to refactor this. So this should be called when we call this button. As you can see, we have written the button, and on press the add employee will be called. So yeah, and then in the other screen, this screen, we'll be fetching the list. So we'll go to the all employee screen, and we'll define the list right here. So for this, what we'll do is first we need to call the get function even as soon as we move to that screen. We don't need the user input to wait to load that screen, right? So what we'll do, we'll define the function in the init state of the all employee screen. So what we'll do is we'll define the init state. Yeah. As you can see, the init state will call the qubit, and it will call the get employee function as soon as we come to this page. This should be this actually might give us some error. So what actually needs to be done is we need to wait for the UI to be built, and then only we need to call this function. So what we actually use is you uses widgets dot binding. Yeah, widgets bundle. Let's import it. Binding. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So as soon as this page is open, it will show you the list, and it will call the get employee function that we have defined here. So now, as soon as this is called, we can see if we get the list, this state will be emitted. So the success state employee will be emitted. So we in this screen, what we need to do is, if the state is success, we need to show them we need to show them that uh, all we need to show all the lists. But if the state is suppose loading, we have different state, right? So we'll define using that right here. So if we'll first start with block builder. Okay. This is it. Yeah. Block builder, as I told, if we want to build the UI, we'll be using block builder context. We'll be passing context and the state. So the context will tell which screen we are in, and the state will tell which state we are in. So in this thing, we'll be returning this. We don't need this right here. Yeah. We'll return the scaffold right here itself. And what we'll do is remove all this, write it from scratch then. Yeah. So as you can see, if the state is in its state, we'll be using only two states in here. One will be okay for syntax errors. One will be the loading state and other will be the success state. So return scaffold. As you can see, even here, if the state is loading, we'll be showing a center progress indicator. But if the state is success, we'll be showing them a list of all the employees. Cool. All this are defined in our state file. So let's start, and we'll be handling all the errors while we are fetching it. We are almost done. So the error is that in the employee profile screen, we need to pass the employee as well. So for now, let's let it be null, or let's not comment this thing. Cool. So let's start, and we'll be solving errors on the way. It's running. Yeah. So suppose I'm writing my name and some age and some. If we do an add employee stuff, we have got some error. Just quickly see what it is. Cool. Yeah. So in this, we are what we actually need to do here is so this is actually a provider thing. So we won't be using this thing. We have to use something like a read context dot read. Yeah, and then we need the employee qubit, right? Yeah, we have some other error control. Cool, cool. Okay, understood this. So the error is that in this file we have mentioned the wrong syntax right here. As you can see, we need to build a. Yeah, so we have what the one thing we have not done is we need to in the main dot file, as I mentioned in the PPT, we need to provide the block provider as so that the UI know that that the qubit the widget trees receive the qubits multi-block provider, and we will be having providers and employing qubits. Right. Cool. We're having a few errors and we'll be uh, solving errors on the way. Let's see now. Okay, we'll just write debug statement so that we know that cool things are happening. We'll just write it here. Right? And this will be passed here as well. Interpreter added is already mentioned. So run the app again. This might take some few time. While this is happening, we'll just go through the code once again, and I'll just brief what we have actually done. So first we made the qubit file, and then we made the qubit states. So in the qubit, we have all the methods. In the state, we have all the states. So the error that we faced just right now was that we need to tell the UI that we are using blocks and qubits. So at the main, again, this here right now, I've used it as a global qubit, but you can do this in file itself. So that will be a local qubit for your app. This is taking longer than usual. Okay, so what we'll do is we can wait, or we'll wait for 1 more minute, and otherwise I'll just redo it. Okay, so by the time this is loading, I'll just get a flush bar function so that once we know the any request has been added perfectly, we'll get a flush bar on the top. So by the time this loads, just add quickly here a method. And I have used in other apps, so I'll just get this code from there. And before we do this, we will be importing the flush bar from the pub.dat file. So what we'll do, we'll just go here, and then we'll define the thing here. And in this, in the repository, as soon as we get something, we show them, show some flash bar. This is actually what we are doing is as we get some response from the uh, backend, we'll show a flash bar at the top of the screen. So as I've added the parameters, we'll have to add it here as well. Yeah. What we can do is we can just add it here. And we have to, yeah. And here we also need to pass the parameters. So I think that we should cancel this thing and we'll just start it again. We have another emulator. This doesn't run. We'll just wait for one moment. Otherwise, I'll show you the working example of this. This is again. I'll just restart my Android Studio. This error sometimes occurs. Yeah, just a second. Android Studio is almost restarted. So here, what we have is, hmm, oh, it's my screen. I just share. We are almost done. It's just, yeah. So this is actually a working example of the current thing that we did. Yeah. So I'll just add Udran and 19 something finance. I'm clicking on add employee just right now. It should work. Okay, yeah, cool. Employee was added, and in the right section that we said, the all the employees that are already there in the backend will be fetched. So that is there. So again, if we want to suppose add some other name, PDSCVIT, both age is 30, that's some phone number. This will be marketing. Add an employee, we get a custom flash bar at the top, and here we have got the list. So as I click on this, we have a loading state first, and then as soon as the state has changed. So what is happening here when we click on the screen, the loading state is there, and as soon as we get the list, the success state is emitted with the list, with the all employees list, and it is shown here. So that was it for this session. So same you can do with the other other two CRUD function, that is update and delete. So that's it. I think I hope you enjoyed it, and we have another session later for integration of Flutter and Firebase. So in that also we'll be using this instead of API, we'll be using Firebase, Cloud Firestore for that.